also say.
She's just going to be a comma in history. And lost 20 million. He came in over budget. Government contractor.
Okay, gewaltig. Okay, gewaltig. So we are up to Daf Kuf Mem Amar Aleph. So today is the yard of Rachel Imenu. Mama Rachel should take care of us, like Reb Chaim Shmulevitz once went to Rachel, and he told his mother, Mama Ziza, the Navi says, Mini koilech mibechi, menaich midima. The Navi says, stop crying. Aber Chaim will talk. He's talking about himself. Chaim was like, Mama Vein, we're in trouble. Keep on crying. We need help. Forget the Navi. You got to help us out. It's also the yahrzeit today of Rav Nosson Tzvi Finkel, Rashiv of Demir. It's his yahrzeit today as well. And he had terrible Parkinson's at the end of his life. And I'm not proud of it, but I might have to do with it. Because when I was in the mirror, I sat right behind him. And you know, sometimes you stand up and your standard flies forward. I must have hit him in the back of his head at least 10 times throughout the course of his mom. And I could tell you, he never once turned around. He doesn't even know that I sat behind him. But at least 10 times my standard went flying. You know, I'm like a jumpy guy. And his chatani maskayim, but he never ever turned around when I did it. So that's my experience with him. Rav Beinish, his father-in-law, was my Rosh Yeshiva. Rav Beinish was also known to be a very big ono, and there were stories where a bocher was sleeping at his house, maybe a relative, a cousin, Friday night, and he would wake up in the middle of the night and see Rav Beinish would be sitting and learning by the dining table, and so he would rustle to get a better look. When Rav Beinish thought that he might be up, he would quickly run into the kitchen and start smelling the chon, making believe like he's just trying to make sure that everything's cooking over there. And then my friend would be quiet again, and again he would make noise, and again he would go running. So he saw that Rav Beinish was doing everything he could possibly do to avoid someone thinking that maybe he was up learning the whole night. And the most famous thing about Rav Beinish is, for some reason, the Racham didn't like listening to his shir. So whenever he would come to say shir, there would be like a stampede out of the Bismardish. So once there was a big stampede out of the Bismardish, and there was a new bocher running down the stairs because Rav Beinish was saying shir, and everyone knew they had to escape. Now as he's running down the stairs, he banged straight into Rav Beinish. Rav Beinish asks, "Vos is?" That everyone's running out. So he says, "Rav Beinish is saying shir. Rav Beinish is saying shir." Oh, okay. That's so Zechutzam Yavin Aleinu Val Kol Yisrael. Okay.
I heard it, yeah.
That what?
He asked for Bain. Where's everybody running?
Oh, so Rav Beinish said. So that's what he himself said. That would make sense. That would make sense. He was an incredible honor. Okay. So the Gemara, the Mishnah taught us that although the boys yarshin, if there's not going to be enough money to fulfill the T'nai Ksuba, that the daughters have to be supported from the estate, then the boys don't get the yard. So the Gemara says, how much is enough? How long does the estate have to be able to support them for to allow the boys to take Yerusha? So the Gemara says, until they become adults. So however old they are, we figure how many years it will be until they become adults. And that's how many years there has to be a value of in the assets so that we could allow the boys to take their Yerusha and leave over whatever portion is required for the girls. But the way it works is if there's plenty of assets, then we don't partition or lock any assets for the purpose of the girl, because we just let them continue to take and deplete the estate, just as the boys do. And we're not concerned because there's plenty of money there. But if we don't have enough money to support both the boys and the girls until they're adults, then what we need to do is we have to partition off the amount of money that we'll require for the girls, and we'll only release the rest. And if there's only enough for the girls, then the boys have to be chozer al apsam. So the last thing we learned was at the end of Daf Kuf Lamed Tes Amud Beis was Amar Abba Barachana, Amar B'Yechadon, Kol Shirzunu Mehem Elu Ve'elu, Achi Yivguru Hein Merubin, and there they don't lock anything up. But Pachas Mikan, if we're worried that we don't have enough assets, then Ared Mu'atin, so Frek Gemor V'Lekala Elu Ve'elu, Achi Yivguru, are you suggesting that Shakli Luhu Banish L'chulu? Because the Mishnah says that by Nechasim Mu'atim, the higher estate is locked up for the Banish. That wouldn't be fair, because there's a lot more money here than required to support the girls. Yes, there might not be enough to support the girls and the boys until they're adults, but why lock everything up? Only lock up the amount that's needed to support the girls. And at least the rest, let the boys use. So that's in fact what will happen. If there's not enough assets that they can all live off it for 5 years, let's say, if that's the amount of time they would need Achi Yivguru, then we lock up the amount of assets required to support the girls, and the rest will still be free to use for the boys. Zok Gemara, Pshita Merubun V'Nismat. What if at the time of the death of the father, there was plenty of assets to go around, and therefore we didn't lock anything up? And then V'Nismatu. And how would it be Nismatu? So Zok Rashbam, the Achshav Hakiru Mezainos. There was inflation. The price of food went up. So suddenly the amount of money that was there in the pot is no longer enough. Or Niskalku the chosru, or Bitcoin dropped in value. So therefore the value of the estate dropped. Now they won't be enough. So what do you do? It doesn't matter. Since at the time of the Misa, the sons were Zoicha in the Yerusha, therefore we're not worried. Zachu ben Yarshim. Zok Rashbam, what does that mean? Zachu ben Yarshim. The Shashmis Zabian. The Karina Behuna Chasam Ruben. At the time of the Misa, that's when you determine if it's Nechasam Muatam or not, and at the time it was Nechasam Ruben. And therefore, the Yichla Abonois Chelkon Hamagiam Lefishuma Shashmis Zavian. We assess everything based on that snapshot in time when their father died. And therefore, Va'abonim Yishu Chelkam Shahayim Magiyam Ba'isashah. And the sons could get whatever they would have been entitled to at that time, less what the girls would require. And if now there aren't enough nechosim to support them until they're adults, well, then so be it. And when they run out of food, they'll have to be chosher al upsah. What would happen if it was mu'atin v'nisrabu? What if at the time of Misa, it was determined that we have to lock up the nechosim for the girls, but then the price of food went down, or there was a tremendous gain in the nechosim? Do we get to change the status quo, and now the boys get to keep some of it? Or do you say it's locked up, like we said, by Merubim and Nismaitu? So Zok Gemara Mai, Rishus Yarshim Kaimi, do we say that it always remained in the Rishus of the Yarshim, and therefore Hilchach Rishus Yarshim Shavua? We say it went up in the Rishus of the Yarshim when we do reassess. Aidilma Sluki Misalki Yarshim. Or do you say once at the time of death we took away the interests of the boys in this estate, they don't get it back? Zok Rashi, I'm sorry, Zok Rashbam. Mal mimati raf chalabonim, do they benefit from it, and therefore v'yitnu Moshe nechosima oidef mechdei mezonos bonos ad sheyivku. Based on the reassessment, being that things are worth much more, or the dollar goes much further now, couldn't we reassess how much the girls need and then release all that extra from the lockup that was designated to them? So Zok to Gemara Toshma. Let's see if we can bring a raya from a Gemara action. The Amar Abasi Amar B'Yoich, from a halacha that an Amor taught us. And this is the halacha. Yisoimim shekadmu u'mochru b'nechasim. We know that by nechasim motim, the Yisoimim aren't allowed to touch the estate because it's locked up for the girls. But they went and wrongfully sold it. Mashamachu machru, their mechira stands, which means even when it's in this situation of lockdown, they're still owning the estate. The haraya, they're able to sell it. Let's see what the Rishbam says, because there's going to be a little bit of a controversy over here. Zok Rishbam, Yisoimim shekadmu, So the response says, "Kodim shamidum banois bedin." They wouldn't have been able to sell it once Bezdin already locked down the nechasim to support the daughters. But right after the misa, before they had a chance to do anything, before Bezdin had a chance to do anything, they quickly went and sold everything. Even if they knew that there's no way they would have been awarded the Yerusha because it would have been locked down for their sisters, it still works. The halacha is you can only take what's actually in the pot in order to support the mazain for the isha, for the almana, and mazain for the daughters. But if it's sold properties, you will never take back from a buyer what he purchased for mazain, isha, and almana. The reason for that is, even though the ksuba is normally mishubit, so why wouldn't the not ksuba be mishubit? The teretz is because then no one would ever buy anything. It would grind commerce to a halt. Because ksuba, if I'm buying a property, I know somebody has a potential liability of a ksuba. Let's say it's $50,000. So I'm buying it with the knowledge that I'm exposed $50,000, and I can make a decision: do I want it or don't I want it, or I'll adjust my price based on the risk. But the risk of mizoynus is endless. I have no idea what it could be because I don't know how long they're going to rely on this for mizoynus. I don't know if she's going to get married in a year. It should take 20 years.
Give me a court order.
Sorry?
Give me a court order. Plan. Your father died.
But it's a takana they don't allow them to take mishuvadim because then nobody's going to want to buy land because their exposure is limitless.
Wait for the court to decide.
What do you mean for the court to decide?
Somebody died.
Moshe Chaim Yankel wants to sell a property.
Chaim Yankel's father just died.
No, we're talking before someone dies.
Right after he died.
That's this particular case. But in general, if someone's married and there's a potential liability on him, on his estate, to support his wife and support his daughters, right? And now he wants to sell a property.
That's a potential liability. Here there's a real liability.
Right.
The guy died.
No, I understand, but the halacha is once they said that you could never take from Mazan Isha and Banais from the Chasam Shabbatim, so then period, you never take from the Chasam Shabbatim, whether he died or he didn't die. But since it could be a limitless liability, therefore they said you could never take from the Chasam Shabbatim. Once they said that, now Avigdor thinks they created a monster because now the Yosy, after there's an active court order or potential court order, they can sell even though they know it's going to be a problem.
Only people with money will be able to sell it too. Because they know that they have other money.
That's right. The rich get richer. Okay? The Choshekein b'nechasam merubim. Choshekein b'nechasam merubim, they wouldn't collect because they can collect from the assets that are in the state. They're big subas. Achem sheshibdu ma'itziin leparnasa, but the ein ma'itziin lemezainas. You don't take away from a lekach to collect from mezainas. Shemamina kivan she'im mochru mechiras on mechir. Since if they would have sold it before it had a chance to go to Bezdin, it would be a good sale. Sale would be valid. So it's a litmus test that they obviously have ownership in it. Yeshlem tfizis yad b'nechasam. And therefore, they're still maintaining an interest, even though Bez is locking it up, but they still have an interest in it, and their mechira will work. Now, the Rashbam is saying, if they did it before the court order, if they did it right away before it went to Bezin, but Tosus, the long Tosus here argues and says and he proves brings many rayas that even if they sold after the court order, it's still a good mechira. So just to take a quick peek into Tosfos, Pirish Bekunta Shakadmu Umachru Kaidim Amdu Bedin Ligvois Labanos Nechasim Ulatim Umilarin Hira Tafilu Kvar Tavsu Abanos Oy Higvul Hem Bezdin. So even if there was already a court order and these Nechasim were locked up, nevertheless in Machur Achim Machur it would still be a good sale. So therefore clearly they have a strong interest in it. And if they have a strong interest in it, therefore, if it went up, they get to take advantage of that, and we will release the nechassim to them because now is nechassim move.
So they get it going up, but they don't lose going down.
To man's world. Zok to Gemara, Yosef, Rabbi Yirmiyah, listen, they have a downside too. If there's not enough, the girls get first and they have to be choshev al-psachim. It's not, they don't always win, right? So Yosef, Rabbi Yirmiyah, Kamei di Rabbi Vo, the Kaboy Minei. It could be now they don't Nowadays in the ksuba, there is no clause of beninukvin that they get to finance themselves from the estate. Because it could be the reason why they don't do it anymore is because now we have the ksuba zachar, the chati zachar and the full zachar. It could be since girls get an equal share nowadays, they don't have this extra benefit. I don't know. I don't know the reason why they left it out. But just to speculate. Yosy Rabbi Yirmiyah kamed Rav Avo. Rabbi Yirmiyah was sitting in front of Rav Avo, and he asked the following question of Rav Avo: Al manusai mau shetamayit b'nechos. When we're making the assessment as to whether or not there's enough assets here for them both to live off, side the sons and side the daughters to live off until they're going to be an adult, how do you calculate the amount of money that would have to be given to the almana? How do you factor that in? Mi amrina, do you say given the Islam mezoni memaita? The fact is she's entitled to mezona, so we do have to consider her in the calculation, and we have to look at can the estate support the banos, the banim, and the alman, and if not, it's nechasim l'atim. Ideal given the iluminasva lesla, since we don't know if even she'll have to take mezonos for a month, she might be able to remarry quickly. So therefore, we don't factor what she's going to take into the equation. Hashanami lesla. Let's have a look at the Rashbam, because the Rashbam creates two scenarios that could possibly be this shayla. What was the case? Mishame, someone died. So there's everybody coming to collect from this estate. She also needs money to survive until she remarries. The problem is we have exactly the amount of money necessary to support the boys and the girls. Meaning, we would then say, what would we say at this point? If they have exactly enough, we don't lock anything up. Do we say, we do have to lock it up because we don't quite have enough because we're going to be giving the alman as well. And therefore, this is not called nechasam rubim. Even though the estate has plenty of money to support the banos and the banim achiv group, but the almana causes us to look at it differently. And therefore, umafrishin me'nechasim mazan isha va'banos achiv group. So therefore, you have to lock up the amount of money required for the isha and the banos, and the moiser lebanim, and will only release the leftovers. The hamuatim, because now we have to look at it like nechasim muatim. Ula'achar sho yitziu hamoiser. And if they run out of money, the boys, before they are adults, too bad for them. You should all psachim. That's one side. Or maybe kivin the ilumitzvah lebal less lemazoni. Since if the almana would get married quickly, there wouldn't be any mizonis for her. Therefore, loy memata. We don't consider what she's going to take. Uchaman the less adami, and we look at it like she's not here at all. So then, what would you do? Umatzin man nechasam levanois. This line is a little bit difficult because they're here. The Rashbam is saying, I thought you don't do that. You only do that if there's not going to be enough for the boys and the girls to have enough money at Yivgru, then you partition some money for the girls. But if there's enough, then everybody takes evenly. So here the Rashbam is taking a different stance. Even though there's enough, you're still going to lock up what the girls get. V'chol hashar yirshu, and the rest yirshu abonim, the bonim will get kedin nechasam rubim. The ha almana la'memaitalu. We don't consider what the almana is going to get. But she still gets mezonis. But when we make this calculation as to whether or not we should release, there won't be enough. That's true. So what will happen is, so what will you do? So what we'll do is the karinim behu habonim yirshu habonis yizunu. The girls we lock up their chelik. The boys get to take the rest. Umechelek habonos loisis and almanima. From whatever gets locked up for the girls, the almana has nothing, can't touch that. But what she could touch is she'll touch what the boys get. And yes, it will deplete early, and then they'll all be chayzer equally on lapsach. what is the difference between two shilas? Either way, where the Rashbam is learning that we do lock up the amount of money required for the girls. The whole nafkamina is how you deal with almana. The imamaita, if you hold that we factor in right away the amount of money that we have to give the almana, then abonon yishalu v'almana tizai. Then we don't give any assets to the children. We give it. We lock up for the daughters. We lock up for the almana, and the boys are out of luck. But if we say we loy then we lock up the chelik that goes to the bonos, but the rest of it, yazinu yachad ha'almana v'almana. They both get to take from it equally, and once it's depleted, it's depleted. They won't lose out at all. No matter how you look at it, whether the almana is memayit, whether you calculate her requirements in this equation, that doesn't impact the bonus. Regardless, the bonus are going to get locked up for them, what they're entitled to. The whole question is if the almana will get locked up for her, what she's entatled to, or does she just work together with the bonus? No matter how much money there is, to we learned so they have priority. That's one option for the shayla. The Rashbam is another option. Or maybe like we originally thought, that if you don't calculate the almanas chelet, and we figure out that without almanas is enough for all the children to live until they become adults, then everything's wide open, and you don't even lock up anything for the banos either. Even though she might not get married today or tomorrow, but she might get married soon, so we don't calculate her needs in this equation. We'll look at it like it was originally Merubin, and later on it turns out that there wasn't enough. We said that the boys already got a schus in the Yerusha, and then what will you do then? Everybody will take evenly from the estate, and when it gets used up, and then everybody has to fend for themselves. So that is the shayla. When you're making this calculation of whether or not there's enough money, do you factor in what we would potentially have to give to the alman? That was the question. Do you say that since there's a chance that she won't end up collecting, we don't factor her in? What about the case where we know for sure for the duration of a certain period of time, no matter what happens, she'll get? For instance, bas ishta. The halach is often when someone marries a woman and she has her own children that she brings into the marriage, they'll also write in the ksuba that I'm being machayiv myself to support your daughter for a minimum of 5 years, even if she gets married. So there's a stronger chance that she's going to collect, because the almana, once she gets married, she won't collect. So therefore, maybe we don't consider her. But this is chaybus of bas ishtoi, which is a fixed 5 years. And therefore, do you say she's stronger than the almana because for sure she's going to take mezonis for 5 years? Or there's a chance she won't take. You know what? Therefore, if she dies, you won't have to support her, and therefore maybe you don't factor her in.
Yeah. Usually don't.
You didn't use that on the mother. Maybe she'll die, so don't.
Usually don't.
So they shouldn't ask that question. But the answer is simple. They're not going to kill their mother, but they might kill their stepsister. No, I will have to see. There's a discussion about that. Or let's take it further. And if you're going to say by bas ishta, it's loymaita. What about a bachoy? What if the estate owes money to a bachoy? Maushi might to the chosin. Even if the malva dies, the malva's children are still going to become collecting from the estate, and therefore might. The fact is he didn't collect now. So again, none of these women, even the bonus themselves, is mechusher gavayna, because they're not. I don't have to give you tomorrow's mezanis today. So all of us mechusher gavayna. So the Rishonim asked this kasha on this kavara, right? Tema Lari, the Ri has a problem. Hey, Toya Loimer Kane. How could you say such a thing? given the mitzvah by the almana lesla lemamaita the bas nami imitzvah lesla. The daughter also you don't have to support. So if you're going to tell me you're going to calculate that the support might end if she gets married, the banas themselves, if they get married, they don't get support anymore. And that's not a cal. You don't factor that in. You have to assume that they're going to take achati bugger. Either until they become adults or until they get married, whichever comes first. Because she doesn't get the mizoinus of tomorrow, of next year until then. So she hasn't collected on. The Mesanami Lesla Kamoy Basishtai, which is what this kasha. The oit Iba Almona Shaykh Nechasim Uwatim. The Halal, how do you have by Almona Shaykh? How could you let's say it is Nechasim Uwatim by Almona? Buy a girl, buy a daughter, you lock if it's Nechasim Uwatim, you lock up enough money until they become adults. By Almona, how much if you don't consider the fact that she can get married and therefore she's not in the calculation, if you don't say that, on the side that you don't say that, so then how much do you have to lock up for her? There's no end, right? By a girl, there isn't end. There's a hard stop after when she becomes an adult. But the man isn't though. So mashir yeh. Division of babanos yesh shir lemandam achiyivgru albabamono lo shaykh bagus. Vad masa yinachasam otam. How long do you calculate that you potentially would have to support the almana from this estate? V'nir lefarish devadai im enkan el almana itzel abonim. They're both equal. The chain im enkan el almanu bonois as well or equal. The whole takana of nechasim uotim that you lock up to guarantee that the girls will get money only applies to the daughters of the deceased. You know why? Because he cares about them. They're his children. But everybody else is not so worried about it. They've been nice Yerusha, and technically they're also yours. So they have more connection to the state. So we're only going to protect it for them. Even though it's Mechusha Gavana. So Tosfos goes on and on, but I'll call upon it does require a distinction, which Tosfos makes that they're yours. So anyway, Dr. Gemara Vayter. Some people look at it like the opposite, from the opposite direction, with an opposite in Tim Tzalaim. We started off with the Shalach Balchoiv. Here we end up with the Shalach Balchoiv, because Balchoiv, we say, is the least likely to be Memayit, because it's Mechusha Gavayna. But there's another perspective where you can look at it, that the Balchoiv is most likely to be Memayit. Balchoiv Ma'u Shemayit B'nechasim. Would a Balchoiv be Memayit B'nechasim? Bas Ishtoi Ma'u Shemayit B'nechasim. And here the Imtim Tzaloimer is Imtim Tzaloimer Balchoiv B'mayit. If the Balchoiv is B'mayit, maybe that's only because Hanamili the Afagav Dilumayis Isle, because the Bachoiv, even if he dies, his children will still come collect. Abu Bas Ishtoi, the Lesla Imaisa, maybe Bas Ishtoi wouldn't be Mimayit, because if she dies, we no longer have to give her any money. And then, even you're going to say in Tim Shaloimar that you're not worried about her dying, because the almana might get married. So these are all the shilas that were presented. We don't see that the Gemara was pushed them yet. Now the Gemara is a different shayla. Almanot sayubas. So what happens if there's only enough money to support one person, either the daughter or the mother, who gets that money? Who gets to collect first? Amrle. So who asked who? Who is asking who this question? All these questions. It was Rabbi Yirmiyah who was sitting in front of Rabbi Vo. So Rabbi Vo told Rabbi Yirmiyah, you know what, Zilla, you have a very good question. Go home today. This solo, I'll come back tomorrow, and I'll think this over, and I'll give you a terms. Kiyasa, when Rabbi Yirmiyah came back to Rabbi Vo the next day, Amar Le Pshoit Mias Chada. I can't answer all your shilas, but I could answer one of your shilas, which is who comes first, the almana or the daughter, if there's only enough money to support one of them. Yomer Abba Omer Abasi, also almana etzel abbas. When you look at the almana versus the bas, who should have priority? We treat her kabas etzel achen b'nechasim. We look at it the same way we look at prioritizing the daughters over the sons when there's not enough money to go around. Mabas Eitzel Achin. If there's not enough money to go around, who gets priority? Habas Nizainois. The girls get priority to collect. And the brothers, too bad for them, they're going to have to raise their own money.
Don't sell it. with them things.
Right, unless they pull a stud. Or according to Tosh, they can sell it even
Anytime.
after. That's right. Ap almana etalabas. So too, when there's an almana bas, almana nezainis. The almana gets the nezainis. Fabas tashil al apsachim. I'm sorry, it's not a right. Just a comparison. No,
Like, end result by Boston.
it's not bringing. It's not saying because of that. That's why we pass in the same way by an almana. It's just saying almana is going to be. He's taking a stand, his own independence stand. That we're going to give the almana priority, just like we give the daughter priority. But it's not because we give the daughter priority. I don't know if they're linked. Right. I think he's just saying the same way. I guess he's trying to demonstrate a case of priority. But I hear. Okay, Zog to Gemara weiter. Zog to Gemara weiter. Admoin Oimer. I'm sorry.
It's just setting of the pecking order. First,
Correct.
First the wife, then the daughters and the son.
That's right. But that's only if there's no sons, right? When there's only a daughter and a almana.
No,
Because we have a separate shaila. We have a separate shaila if we even factor in what the almana needs. And it was clear from the Rishbam that the brothers have priority to the almana, right? The Rishbam says, regardless, the girls are protected. The question is if the almana is protected. I don't know if that stems with what we just said now. So it could be if there's no sons at all, and the daughters of the Yershim, I think that's when the question is almana and bas, who gets first. Because if the boys are around, on Amar Aleph, the Rishbam already told us that the girls get protected first.
Doesn't this seem to be saying that if it's a mother and daughters, that the mother goes first?
Well, it seems like that's the case, because if you look at the Rishbam, all you have left in the estate is enough for one of them to survive. They're both claiming so it can't be what I said, that there's no sons around, right? Because they're both collecting with Naksuba. Who's going to get? So we probably going to have to finish off that Tosfos inside, because Tosfos is going to be speaking about all that. So let's see. We have a little bit of time, so let me finish the Amid. See if we can go back to Tosfos. Ad ben Oimer b'shvil shani zacher sadati. Why is it fair that I should lose because I'm a zacher? So Adman is indicating that since I'm a boy, I should have priority. So why do we lock up the nechasim? Let's give first priority to the boys. My comer, exactly what is Adman trying to say? My yifu koyach yesh lezacher b'mezaynos b'makam acher yoshim in the keva. Where do you ever find that the Banam have any type of priority? Right? You're trying to say that I have a greater koyach. Why should I lose? I'm about hachikam. B'shvil shani zacher v'royu ani lasik b'toyra sadati. I'm oisik b'toyra. So I should have first rights to the money. Amalei Rava. So you're telling me that someone who learns has priority? So you're going to tell me, Elamanda Asik B'Torah, who the Yoris, the Le'asik B'Torah Lo Yoris? Are you suggesting that if somebody has two sons and one of them learns Torah and one of them doesn't, the one who doesn't learn Torah doesn't get? Zokter Rishbam, Klemer Mishyesh Le'Shnei Bonim, Echad Asik B'Torah, V'echad Eino Asik, V'chi Avat Schusay B'Yerushasay, Shosh Eino Asik. Learning Torah is not a reason to give you any type of priority in the nechasim of your father. Ela Amarava Hachika Amar. B'shvil shani zacha, v'royu ani leiresh b'nechasim Reuben. You know where you see I have a stronger claim, because by nechasim Reuben you only get mezainis and we get everything. So you see we have a stronger tfisa on the Yerusha. So you're going to say if sadati b'nechasim watim, I should lose. So that was his taina. He was upset about that. So Tosfos has a very interesting little point. How could you say? The Gemara says that you cannot say that someone who learns yarshins, and we cut out from the will the guy who doesn't learn. For Tosfos, the Gemara actually says just that. The Alva Amina, come on Daf Kuf Mem Aleph. Tomorrow we're going to learn. It says a mitzvah lozun es habonois. It's a mitzvah to support your daughters. The kalva chaymer habonim ha'oiskim b'raisa. And even more important than supporting your daughters is supporting your children, your boys who are learning. So you see, they do get priority in Yerusha. The Gemara, no. Hanuli mitzvah. Yes, it's a mitzvah to support those children. Avolinim dina. And lechalek ben aski b'raisa d'loyas. You want to give them extra money, maybe there's a mitzvah to do that. But Lagabi Yerusha, everybody's. Zok the Heilige Mishnah Weiter. Hiniach al the Shversno. Hiniach bonim ubonois v'tumtum. What if someone had daughters and sons and a tumtum? So we don't know, is it tumtum female or male? And we're going to learn there's a strong tzad that we don't consider this child female, nor do we consider it a male. So bizman shenachasim aruvim. If there's plenty of nechasim around, so then this tumtum avada would rather be a male, because yes, there might be $100,000 given to the girls, but there might be $30 million that the boys are going to get. So the zcharim could tell them, you're not a zachar. Prove you're a zachar. We'll give you a share. Go to the nekebus. Now you would think if he's sending them to the nekebus, it means we're going to be giving them mezonus, but we're soon going to see they don't get mezonus either, because there might be a barrier between that and not just a suffer. Nechasim what? What if there's nechasim what? So now only the nekevas are getting. So now this tumtum wants to be a nekeva. I identify as a nekeva. I should be able to get mezainis. So on the nekevas doichas I say l'charim. What's that?
Get away with that whole.
Zok gemar vayter. What if someone says, ha'omer? Someone said his wife was expecting. He was all excited, and he said, "Him tailed ishti zachar yitel mana." If my wife gives birth to a zachar, I'm giving the baby $100. Now the Rashbam says the case was mechalek nechasafai. He was preparing for death, the father, and he was giving away all his nechasim. Umitzah l'kaim divrames. That's one option. Inami bari. No, he was not dying. He was a healthy guy. V'zicha lo ya'ideyach. He told somebody, "Here, I want you to be kind of this on behalf of the baby, if the baby is a zachar." He can't be mizaka to an uber can't be kind of. The Gemara is going to blind swear on this case. The Gemara is going to say this mission is not a good mission. How could you be makna something to an uber? What if someone said him tell the ish in the keva, yito masayim? So the Allah is you hold in the keva and the tells masayim. The Gemara is going to ask, why would I want to give a girl more than I want to give a boy? Why is that? Im zachar mana im the keva masayim. What if he said, if it will be a zachar, I want a mana. If it will be a nekeva, I want to give masayim. V'yolda zachar unekeva. And the Rashbam means, it doesn't mean twins. The Rashbam learns that if it was twins, they get nothing. It means either a zachar or a nekeva, then zachar noitel mana, nekeva noitelos masayim. So in the first case, he only said zachar, only said nekeva. Now he said whether it's a zachar or nekeva, the zachar will get a mana, nekeva will get a masayim, but he's not contemplating that it would be both. It means one or the other. What about yolda tumtum? Ein noitel doesn't get it all. The question is, if a tumtum is a suffix zachar, suffix nekeva, he should at least get a mana. Elamai, from here you see that at least this chelik of the Gemara, this chelik of the Mishnah holds that a tumtum is a berry b'chneatzma. He's neither a zachar nor anything. Oh. Im Omar, he's a furry. Im Omar kol masha teilet ishti. Yita, what if he says, whatever my wife gives birth to, will get, then I raise a yita, then he will get even a tumtum. Then aim shem yorish, alu yorish sakol. If he's only one child, then he gets everything. Even the tumtum will get everything. Because there's nobody else there. Zog to Gemara. Yeah. He might not be a son or a daughter, but he is a child. It says that if there's nechasam or rubim, the zcharim can push him to the daughters. The shakal kabas. So it's a mashma that he's really a suffix zachar, suffix nekeva. And if there's a lot of nechasim there, the sons would have to support this guy. So doesn't it tell us clearly that it's not a zachar or a nekeva? It's a berry b'fnei. So Amar Abaye, I'll tell you pshat. When the Reisha says that when he comes to the zcharim, they push him to the nekevos, that doesn't mean he's going to get. The nekevos are also going to push him away. So that's what it means, and he's really a berry b'fnei. For Rav Amar, no, the ratio holds it's a sum. In the ratio, where there's Nechasim Merubim, where the boys say, we'll treat you like an Akeva. In fact, he will be able to collect like an Akeva, because the Tana of the ratio the Mishnah holds that it's a suffix. And the Seifa that says, if it's a Tumtum, it gets nothing at all, because a Tumtum is a Ber B'fnei Atzma, that's also the Reb Shimon Gamliel, who happens to hold that a Tumtum is a Ber B'fnei Atzma. That's non-Milun. Yolda Tumtum Van Droigenois, Reb Shimon Gamliel, Omer Ein Kedusha Chal Alayim. Here's a case where there's an animal that's about to give birth to its first child, so it's going to be a Bechor, it's going to have Kedushas Bechor. And for some reason, this fellow didn't want Kedushas Bechor to be Chalal. So he said, if the baby that's going to be born is going to be a Zachar, I want it to be an Oila. And if it's going to be in a cave, I want it to be a Shlomim, and therefore that will Chal upon them and it won't get Kedushas Bechor. So, I'm sorry? Say that again. By a tumtum? Oh, we had that child before. Yeah, the Gemara said that the Gemara had a kash on this because we had a bride that says she sheves kizachar uchin nekeva. The Gemara asked if she's a ber b'fnei atma, it should say zachar nekeva and like a regular yeleves. So the Gemara said that's what it means. So she would have to be cautious to everything. No kedusha will be chal on them because a tumtum is not a zocher, nor is it in the keva. So you see clearly from Reb Shimon ben Gamliel that a tumtum is a beri b'fnei atzma. Meisei fektumah. Tumtum yoyreish keben. A tumtum yarshes like a son. V'nizin kabas. So that seems the opposite of what we're saying. He gets the better of both worlds. Bishtam l'rava yoyreish keben b'nechasim and mortem. Maybe what does it mean yoyreish keben? It means yoyreish keben if there's not enough nechasim and the ben's not getting anyway. It's all going to the girls. V'nizin kabas b'nechasim ruba, meaning if there's plenty of nechasim, he's niza and kabas, meaning that he'll only get mezainis because he's a suffix. So you could make sense of these words. Elala abaye, that he's a beri b'fnei atzma. What does it mean niza and kabas? He never gets mezainis like kabas because he's a suffix. He's not entitled to anything. Zok Gemara l'tamech l'Rava. You think according to Rava it's any better who holds it's a suffix? My yorish keben. So tell somebody what do you mean my yorish keben? We already said it's yorish keben if there's nechasim uwatim, right? But the Gemara is saying we don't like that pshat. Ella, you know what it means? Royu leireish ve'einloi hakanami royu lizan ve'einloi. It means he doesn't actually get because he's a suffix, not because he's a beri b'fnei atzma and he's entitled to nothing at all. Okay, we'll stop here because it's 7:51. So I'm gonna try to spend time doing the toises and sharing with you tomorrow because we still have to see who gets the priority. Because we had a shaila if the mother gets priority over the daughter, but on Amud Aleph it seems like for sure the daughter gets priority over the mother. So I'm gonna have to get clarity in that. Kishkoich, everyone should have an awesome day. And we're going to show the Mama Ruchos of Weinen and bring us a Yosy and whatever we need.